In 2014, nutrition researcher Jennifer D. Noya set out to answer a deceptively simple question: which fruits and vegetables deliver the greatest concentration of essential nutrients for the fewest calories? To find out, she analyzed 47 foods using a strict formula based on 17 nutrients, including fiber, protein, calcium, iron, potassium, folate, and vitamins A, C, E, and K. Each food was measured by how much of those nutrients it provided per 100 calories. The results overturned many popular assumptions. Kale, often promoted as the ultimate superfood, scored 49.07. Spinach performed far better at 86.43. Blueberries, despite their reputation, did not meet the study's minimum threshold for inclusion. But one plant stood above every other qualifying food with a perfect score of 100. Watercress, not an exotic berry from a distant rainforest, not a rare root imported from the mountains, just a small, peppery green that grows naturally in cool, flowing water. Yet this victory came with a strange contradiction. The most nutrient-dense vegetable in the study is almost invisible in modern supermarkets. Kale fills entire refrigerated walls. Iceberg lettuce is stacked in endless rows. Watercress, meanwhile, is usually missing or hidden in a forgotten corner. So how did one of the most nutritionally impressive plants on Earth become a ghost in the produce aisle? The answer begins not in a laboratory, but on the crowded streets of Victorian London. By the middle of the 19th century, London had become the industrial capital of the world. Its factories produced wealth on an extraordinary scale, but the people who powered them often lived in overcrowded rooms, breathed smoke-filled air, and survived on diets built around bread, sweet tea, potatoes, and cheap fat. For the poorest families, fresh produce was difficult to afford. Vitamin deficiencies were common, and illnesses linked to poor nutrition could spread quickly through crowded neighborhoods. Yet every morning, before the factories roared to life, a small green plant appeared on the streets. Watercress sellers moved through London carrying baskets filled with freshly cut bunches. Many were women and children, some extremely young, walking barefoot or in worn shoes through cold, dirty streets. Their cries of fresh watercresses became part of the city's morning soundtrack, echoing between brick buildings, workshops, and tenements. A bunch cost only a penny, placing it within reach of laborers who could not regularly buy meat, milk, or imported fruit. People ate it in sandwiches, alongside bread, or sometimes by itself. Its sharp, peppery flavor offered something fresh in a diet dominated by starch and grease. The Victorians called watercress the poor man's bread. The name did not mean it replaced bread in calories. It meant the plant had become a dependable source of nourishment for people with almost nothing else. Watercress provides vitamin C, vitamin K, calcium, folate, and plant compounds found in cruciferous vegetables, all packed into very few calories. The workers of Victorian London did not understand nutrient density or biochemical pathways. They simply knew that this inexpensive green made a poor meal feel more complete. For many families, it was medicine disguised as breakfast. Long before scientists placed watercress at the top of a nutritional ranking, the poorest people in one of the world's richest cities had already discovered its value. The story of watercress did not end on the streets of London. Its journey began 50 miles away, in the chalk streams of Hampshire, where farmers learned how to cultivate it commercially. Watercress is not an ordinary field crop. It grows best in cool, clean, constantly moving water. Farmers prepared gravel beds fed by underground springs, allowing mineral-rich water to flow continuously around the roots. The current kept the plants fresh, reduced stagnation, and helped produce the crisp stems and peppery leaves that London buyers expected. Harvesting began before sunrise. Workers stepped into the shallow beds, cut the strongest bunches by hand, and packed them while the leaves were still cold from the stream. Speed mattered because watercress started losing freshness almost as soon as it was removed from the water. That urgency gave the railway a vital role. The Midhants Railway carried large quantities of watercress from Hampshire toward London, and eventually became known as the Watercress Line. The railway was not built solely for this crop, but watercress became one of its most famous products and a symbol of the region. In its most efficient form, the system was remarkably fast. Watercress could be harvested in the early morning, loaded onto trains soon afterward, and sold in London markets only hours later. Long before refrigerated trucks and modern supply chains, farmers and railway workers had created a coordinated farm-to-market network. It worked because every part of the system was designed around one fact: this fragile plant had to move quickly. For decades, speed preserved what storage could not. By the end of the 19th century, the food system faced a new problem. Cities were expanding, populations were rising, and millions of people now lived far from the farms that supplied them. Fresh vegetables had to survive longer journeys, rougher handling, and days of storage before reaching the customer. This challenge favored a very different kind of lettuce. Crisp-head varieties, including the type later known as iceberg, formed dense, tightly packed heads that resisted bruising far better than delicate leafy greens. Growers and distributors quickly realized that these lettuces could be packed into crates, covered with crushed ice, and transported across long distances while still looking fresh when they arrived. The name iceberg became associated with this method of shipment. Railway cars loaded with lettuce and ice reportedly looked like moving fields of snow. More important than the name, however, was the technology behind it. Iceberg lettuce behaved almost like a manufactured product. It was uniform in size, easy to stack, difficult to damage, and simple for retailers to price and display. During the 20th century, new cooling methods strengthened its advantage. Vacuum cooling removed field heat soon after harvest. Refrigerated transport slowed decay. Modified atmosphere packaging later helped control oxygen and moisture around the leaves. Together, these innovations allowed lettuce to travel farther and remain saleable for much longer. Supermarkets loved the result. Iceberg reduced waste, simplified inventory, and created a predictable product that could be supplied throughout the year. A store manager did not have to sell it within hours. A distributor could move it through centralized warehouses. A customer could leave it in the refrigerator for days without watching it collapse. Durability quietly became a new form of value. This was more than a change in taste. It was a change in what the food system rewarded. The winning vegetable was no longer necessarily the most flavorful or nutrient-rich. It was the one that survived the journey, fit the box, and remained profitable under fluorescent supermarket lights. Watercress entered the modern supply chain with nearly every disadvantage a supermarket could punish. The plant is composed mostly of water. Its stems are delicate, and its leaves depend on constant moisture to remain crisp. Once cut from the stream, it begins losing structure almost immediately. Within hours, the stems soften, and the leaves start to droop. Even under refrigeration, watercress remains highly perishable. It can arrive at a distribution center looking fresh and reach the store already tired around the edges. In a system built around long-distance trucking, centralized warehouses, and carefully scheduled deliveries, that instability creates risk. Supermarkets prefer produce with three qualities: a long shelf life, a uniform appearance, and a predictable supply. Watercress struggles with all three. One bunch may be vibrant and firm, while another may wilt before the end of the day. It cannot sit under bright display lights for weeks, and it does not tolerate rough handling. Iceberg lettuce offered the opposite. Its tightly packed leaves protected one another. It could be stacked, transported, stored, and displayed with far less waste. For retailers, the comparison was not philosophical, it was financial. A durable product meant fewer losses and more reliable profit. The decline of the old railway network made the problem worse. Freight service on the Midhants route ended in 1964, removing one of the fastest connections between Hampshire's growing beds and London's markets. Road transport provided flexibility, but it could not always match the speed that fragile watercress required. The food system therefore made a rational commercial choice, but not necessarily a healthy one. Iceberg won because it served the warehouse better. Watercress lost because it demanded speed, care, and local coordination. The system optimized the vegetable for the truck instead of optimizing the meal for the human being at the table. Modern diets are often judged by calories, sugar, and fat, but another measure receives far less attention: nutrient density. A meal can provide energy while still delivering limited vitamins, minerals, fiber, and protective plant compounds. Watercress illustrates the difference. Like other cruciferous vegetables, it contains glucosinolates, natural compounds that break down when the leaves are cut or chewed. One of the resulting compounds is phenethyl isothiocyanate, or PEITC, which gives watercress part of its sharp, peppery taste. Laboratory and small human studies have examined how these compounds may influence oxidative stress, cellular defense systems, and markers linked to DNA damage. The findings are promising, but they do not mean watercress can prevent or cure cancer. It should be understood as a nutrient-rich food, not as a medical treatment. Iceberg lettuce is not completely worthless. It provides water, a small amount of fiber, and modest quantities of several vitamins. The problem begins when durability is mistaken for nutritional superiority. A vegetable can be easy to ship, easy to store, and easy to sell, while offering far less nutritional value per calorie than more delicate greens. Over time, the food system rewarded crops bred for size, uniformity, sweetness, and shelf life. Bitter flavors and fragile structures became commercial disadvantages, even though many of the compounds responsible for those flavors are part of what makes plants nutritionally complex. The real cost was not that people started eating iceberg lettuce. It was that long shelf life became the standard by which so many foods were judged. We traded variety for consistency and biological complexity for convenience. Watercress reminds us that the most useful foods are not always the ones that survive longest in a warehouse. Sometimes, the qualities that make a plant difficult to distribute are the same qualities that make it worth eating. The Victorian working class never needed a laboratory report to understand the value of watercress. They learned through experience. When winter diets became monotonous, when children looked pale, or when wages could not stretch far enough to buy meat or fruit, a cheap bunch of greens offered something their bodies were missing. That knowledge was practical, local, and difficult to advertise. Consumers depend on labels, rankings, packaging, and marketing to decide what deserves a place in the shopping cart. Watercress has almost none of those advantages. It bruises easily, wilts quickly, and rarely looks perfect inside a plastic container. It is not designed for bright displays or long campaigns, yet the plant has not disappeared. It is still cultivated by specialist growers and can sometimes be found at farmers' markets, independent produce shops, and specialty sections of larger supermarkets. A small bunch may cost more than a head of iceberg lettuce because it requires clean flowing water, careful harvesting, rapid delivery, and protection from waste. The higher price does not make watercress a miracle food, and its Victorian history should not become empty nostalgia. The lesson is simpler. Convenience has hidden many valuable foods from view. We do not need to reject modern agriculture or abandon durable vegetables. But we should remember that availability is not the same as quality. Sometimes, the most nourishing choices are waiting beyond the products that marketing and logistics have taught us to notice first. Every system becomes shaped by what it chooses to measure. Food distribution measures shelf life, transport cost, visual consistency, storage efficiency, and the percentage of produce that survives long enough to be sold. Those numbers matter, but they are not the same as nutrition. Watercress did not fail because it lacked value. It failed because its strengths were difficult to fit into the system. It wilted quickly, demanded careful handling, and could not remain attractive for weeks under supermarket lights. Iceberg lettuce succeeded because it traveled well, stacked neatly, and produced less waste. As a result, one of the most nutrient-dense vegetables in the 2014 ranking became a specialty item, while a less nutrient-dense green became a permanent feature of supermarkets nationwide. That contrast reveals the real lesson. Systems optimize what they measure, not always what matters most. When shelf life becomes the priority, fragile foods disappear. When appearance becomes the standard, natural variation looks like failure. When low cost per pound becomes the goal, nutrient density can be pushed aside. The next time you enter the produce aisle, look beyond the largest displays. If you find watercress, buy only what you can eat. Add it to salads, sandwiches, soups, or eggs, and treat its short life as a sign of freshness, not weakness. The plant was never inferior. We simply built a system that forgot how to value it.